Hi, this is Miss Goodale, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about absolute value. The first thing that you need to know about absolute value is that absolute value is the distance away from zero of a number. So usually when you are thinking of writing the absolute value of a number, you're just basically taking off the negative sign because you're not going to be a negative distance away from zero. So if I start with my number line, I have 0, -1, +1, -2, +2, +3, -3. If I look at the number -3, the way to note the absolute value is to draw the lines around it. They're just straight up and down on each side of them. So that means absolute value. So I would read this as the absolute value of -3. That means the amount of distance away from 0. So -3, let's count. 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0. So that's 3. The absolute value is 3 because it is 3 spaces away from 0. If I do the same thing with +3, I count this way, 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0, that one is also 3. So it doesn't matter whether it's -3 or +3, the absolute value of both is the same. It's 3. The absolute value of -2, -2 is 1, 2 spaces away from 0, so that is 2. The absolute value of +2, +2 is 1, 2 spaces away from 0, so the absolute value of +2 is 2. Okay, so basically, if I'm looking for the absolute value of any number, let's do 0. This one's a little tricky. How far away is 0 from 0? It is 0 away. So the absolute value of 0 is just 0. And 0 is neither positive or negative. So now if I have to compare the distances, then really let's do what? Let's say -2, and I'm comparing that to the absolute value of, or just -2. So the absolute value of -2 and the absolute value of 2. Well, the absolute value of -2 is equal to 2. So the absolute value of -2 is greater than the absolute value of, or than just -2 without the absolute value signs. I apologize for saying that wrong. Let's do a couple more. So we have -3 and the absolute value of -4. The absolute value of -3 is 3. The absolute value of -4 is 4. So the absolute value of -4 is greater. Now remember, if you just had -3 and -4, it would be the other way around, okay, without the absolute value signs. But with them, they become the numbers as positive numbers. So that makes them backwards. Some examples that you may come across in class are, you may get a problem that asks you what numbers have an absolute value of 5. Okay, well 5, the absolute value of 5 means that the number is 5 away from 0. So that would just be +5 is 5 away from 0, and -5. So the absolute value of 5, and I'm going to draw an arrow because it's not actually equal to both of those. The absolute value of these two numbers will both equal 5. And that works the same with fractions and decimals. If I said what fraction or decimal has the same absolute value as 2.5, well, 2.5 obviously has an absolute value of 2.5, but also negative 2.5 has an absolute value. So you have both the positive and the negative version of that number. And again, if 0, what number has the absolute value of 0? Just 0, because 0 is, there's no negative version of 0. Okay, so that should kind of cover that. One more thing that they cover in your book is to use absolute value to describe different situations. So if I had a negative balance, let's say my balance of my bank account is negative 10. If I use the absolute value to describe negative 10 as an account balance, I would say the account has a debt, which means they owe, of $10. Okay, so that means it has $10 that it owes. That would be negative 10. If I said negative 5 yards, that would mean the team lost 5 yards. So it has to be something that would go down or in the negative direction, like losing or having a debt. But then when we say it as the absolute value, we don't put the negative sign on there. I know there's a lot of situations here that we haven't covered, so please ask questions as you need them. Hopefully that helped a little bit with absolute value. Thank you.